kicking off another wonderful season. I'm not a comedian. All right, so this is the Sunday Assembly. This is my very first time up here, but I'm very happy that everybody did show up. Thank you very much. Give yourself a round of applause, please. So, Sunday Assembly basically lives by 3 mottos. Live better, help often, wonder more. Personally, the definition that we wrote down on our website was, we aim to provide, inspire, thought-provoking, and practical ideas that help people to live the lives they want to lead and the people they want to be. I think that's what everybody really wants. And I think that makes for a great place to live, a wonderful world, where everybody can come together and find a commonality between everybody. So today, we're going to have a great presentation about the moon. We're going to do some singing, no dancing, that's optional afterwards. Although we have plenty of space. So, next we're just going to go right into our next song. Is that good with you?
Yeah.
Emily, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I know we don't have lyrics, but this one I feel like you guys will probably know, or at least recognize a little bit, like the last one. So definitely feel free to sing along.
Positive, new jobs, graduations, anything at all? Nothing?
My oldest son, Hazen, I took to college last week, so I got one out of the house finally.
Congratulations, are you home for lunch? Where's you going to school?
Almost.
Nice. Anybody else like to share anything? Okay, no worries. So this morning I was actually reading a conservative, and don't get me for this, it was a conservative paper about how recycling doesn't work. and liberals are dumb. And basically just trash recycling the program, and liberals are just going out of their way to do ridiculous things. And I started thinking about Thomas Edison, where when he invented the light bulb, they asked him, how many times did it take you to put all the different gases together to find the right combination? He said, it took me 200 different tries. And a reporter asked him, well, how did it feel to fail 200 times? To which he infamously answered, I didn't fail 200 times, I just found 200 ways that don't work. And I started thinking, what if Edison was alive today? People would ridicule him. They would say, look at a liberal weirdo trying to invent the light bulb. Look, he keeps failing over and over again. He's wasting his time, he's wasting everybody's time just getting hopes up. I'm a conservative. I light candles. My daddy lit candles, my grandpa lit candles. We only get light from candles. You cannot get light anywhere else but a candle. But you can't get discouraged. People would have called him a lunatic. It would have been lunacy. Which is actually an introduction to today's program because lunatic comes from the word luna, the word for moon. Wow. There's your random fact for the day. So, now we're going to have one more song. Luna.
restaurant they have on the moon? Great food, no atmosphere.
My dad will watch make those jokes. All right, so here's our guest speaker today, Jeff Macleod. Come on up.
All right, how many lunatics do I have here? I define it as someone who just really likes the moon, but at the end of this presentation, you'll be a lunatic one way or the other. I'll either drive you crazy or give you some new perspective on the moon. I'm gonna start this timer here. Oh, this will work? Great, awesome. All right, so a little bit of background on myself. I'm the president of the Warren Astronomical Society. Through the end of the year, I put some cards out. So if you're interested in astronomy, they're a local club. We do a lot of different events, so definitely check us out. I also work for the Wayne State Planetarium. I'm a physics major there. I don't know how I feel about that sometimes, but and also I think the reason I'm here today is I'm a solar system ambassador for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. This is an outreach program that NASA put together that helps people like me talk to people like you. And I also wanted to say thanks for having me. This is an awesome little community you guys have here. It's always great when someone reaches out to us for a presentation, and then it's also great when people actually show up for that presentation. So I'm not an official educator, but I do a lot of astronomy education. And what happens in any of the STEM fields is you get people telling you that your field is boring. So I've been told that the moon is boring. Hopefully you guys don't think that, but I'm going to fix that if you do. So the moon is not boring. How rotation, revolution, and perturbation conspire to keep things interesting. We're going to go over all of those little things. So what I want to talk about is basically background and some misconceptions and illusions that the moon creates. Then we're going to get into librations, not libations, sorry. There are some lunar libations out there. Perceptions and perturbations, maybe we'll get into that. It gets rather complicated, and I'm tight for time, so maybe we'll just skip to eclipses and occultations. And then, unfortunately, my other favorite subject is the Apollo moon landing, but we won't talk about that. But if you guys have any questions afterwards, feel free to ask. And then also, if you have questions during, feel free to interrupt me. I'd rather clarify something in the moment, because you will forget it by the end. So, a little bit of background, as Anthony pointed out, name Luna, not moon. About 2,000 miles in diameter, makes it about a quarter the size of the Earth in terms of its radius. Makes it much smaller in terms of volume, which gives it a surface gravity of around 1/6. Distance, I just say 250,000 miles. That number changes. Composition, not made of cheese. I'm glad I put this. No atmosphere. That's a good joke that I have not heard. So does this look right to everyone? That's the Earth. That's the moon. Farther away, exactly. So if you look down here, this is actually the Earth and moon to scale for size and distance. The moon is over 30 Earth diameters away. So very far. So, and this is the closest thing to the Earth. The easiest thing we can possibly get to, and the only thing we've ever actually traveled to. Mars is, I think, like 150 times further away or something at its closest. So don't worry about any of this, but the orbit is rather important to lunar motions. So perigee, I'm just going to give you guys some terminology here. Perigee refers to the point when the moon is closest to the Earth. Apogee, when it is farthest away. Inclination, if I grab my little orbit demonstrator here. Here's our orbit. Inclination is how much it is tilted in one direction. And then eccentricity is how not round the orbit is. So the moon's orbit is not a perfect circle, it's actually squatted just a little bit. This forms an ellipse. All of the planets, everything orbits an ellipse. That's great.
Oh my God.
That's what's known as an escape trajectory. And then don't worry about these periods. And then axial tilt, just like the Earth is tilted, the moon is also slightly tilted. So what I'm going to focus focus on is inclination and eccentricity. But before we go into that, phasing. This causes some confusion. A lot of people think that the phase of the moon is caused by the Earth's shadow. No, wrong. The phase of the moon is actually caused by the moon and our position here on the Earth. So you can see here's our moon going around the Earth. The moon is always illuminated by the sun 50-50, just like the Earth is. You've got a day side and a night side. But as it goes around the Earth, our vantage point is what's changing. So when the moon is behind the Earth and our sun is way over here, we have a full moon. When it swings around and it's in front of the sun, we have a new moon. Now it's not perfectly in front of the sun because otherwise we'd have an eclipse. But this is actually what's causing the phasing, and the phasing causes what's known as this line here between light and shadow, known as the Terminator. Another great word. And then the last thing I want to point out is, can you see the dark moon here? So this is a phenomenon known as earthshine. You've probably seen this. It's hard to capture with a camera, but your eye picks it up rather easily. This is actually caused by how bright the Earth is in space. So if you've ever seen a full moon and you think, wow, that moon's bright. If you were on the moon looking back at the Earth, it would be, it can be 50 times brighter, which is extremely bright. Not only because the Earth is larger than the moon, but it's actually brighter. We have white clouds. The moon is actually rather dark. It's the color of asphalt. So this light is actually caused by light scattering off the Earth, hitting the dark side of the moon, and then bouncing back to the Earth and into your eye. That's how bright the Earth is. So then this Terminator, why is that important and why did I mention it? Because timing is everything. If you want to observe the moon, you ask an astronomer, when do you want to look at the moon? Most of them will say, I don't want to look at the moon anyway. I do my observations when there's no moon, because that's when you get really dark skies. But if you want to look at the moon, you want to look at objects near the Terminator. This is creating long shadows that allow you to see features more easily. So this is Copernicus crater. It's sometimes called the gateway to the moon. If we look at our globe here, that's how the moon faces us, and Copernicus is right here on the left hand, or I'm sorry, right here on the left side. A huge ejecta blanket coming off, very easy to spot. About 60 miles in diameter. It's a relatively young crater. I mean, lunar ages, anything less than 1 billion years old is considered young. But this picture was taken near full moon, and it just kind of looks like some lines. This picture was taken close to the Terminator, and you can see a lot more features about this crater. And in fact, you can actually do science with a photo like this. If you know the distance to the moon, which you can actually determine to within 10% with no electricity, I have a different presentation on that measurement. The ancients did that and actually got a pretty close number. You can actually determine the size of the moon. So then if you can measure angles, you can use trigonometry to figure out the dimensions of this crater. So this guy is about 2.5 miles deep. And these mountains in the center here are rebound structures, and they are jutting out of this basin about 2,600 feet. So those are very tall mountains in the center of this crater. You don't get much of that from this photo. This photo clearly shows just how much is going on in a feature like that. A much better picture. Okay, inclination. Again, the orbit is tilted slightly. The moon does not orbit around the equator of the Earth, which would be around here, and nor does it orbit in the plane of the Earth's orbit. So it's kind of tilted just about 5 degrees. But what this does is it changes the position that you can see the moon in. So this is a projection of where you can see the sun and the moon. This line represents the equinoxes, so the sun rises in the east. From our latitude here in the Detroit area, it goes up to about 42 degrees and then sets due west. So this marks the height of summer. This is our solstice. This marks the winter solstice when the sun is lowest. And that extra 5 degrees that the moon is tilted means that it can be 5 degrees above or below the maximum that the sun can be. So this is anywhere in between these purple lines is where you might see the moon, which is a huge portion of the sky. For our location, it can be all the way up to 71 degrees, which is like, you almost think it's right above you. That typically happens, it's opposite the sun for the most part, within 10 degrees because of that inclination, which means when the sun is high in summer, the moon is low, and when the sun is low, the moon is high. So right now the moon's kind of low, but still a huge portion of the sky, but never in the north. If someone tells you they saw something weird in the north, it certainly wasn't the moon or any planet. They're always in kind of the southern region of the sky. Yes?
Quick comment, that's why I was just thinking of how high in the sky, how close I had to get to the window when I tried to watch the eclipse in January because that's so close to the solstice.
Yes. Yep. So eccentricity, this is the oblateness or out of roundness of the orbit. What this means is that there's that perigee apogee, a close point and a far point. If it orbited in a circle, it would always be the same distance away. But what this means is that the angular size of the moon changes, and it basically, if you could watch the moon in real time, it's pulsating every month. It's doing this. It only changes by about 14%, which isn't much. So when people tell me that they can tell that the moon is larger for a supermoon, I usually tell them, no, I don't think you can. It's because you were told there was a supermoon, and so then you look and you go, oh yeah, that's a supermoon, I know.
We discovered photographing the moon.
Yes.
The lens we used previously on the supermoon, it was outside the...
Oh yes. That's a great way of discovering that the moon actually is changing size. Well, the moon isn't, it's apparent changing size. I'm not a Mac guy, what should I do? So, in terms of its size, it only changes by about 14%, but in brightness, it actually changes by about 30%. So if someone says they can tell that it's brighter, I might give them a little leeway. 30% is within the bounds of being detectable.
Yes. Looking out there, if the area, the apparent area you can see is only changing by that much, why is the brightness changing?
Because the brightness it's an inverse square law, so it's...
Oh, right, of course.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, eccentricity. Am I advancing? Uh-oh. All right. Okay, it's working. Misconception. So I actually went over some of the other misconceptions. The Earth's shadow is causing the phasing. Another one that I glossed over is that the moon doesn't rotate. A lot of people say we always see the same side of the moon, therefore the moon doesn't rotate. Well, it certainly does. It's going around the Earth. The thing that's happening is its rotational speed matches its revolution speed. So what happens is the moon faces you. As it's going around, it's also turning slightly so that it always faces you. And so if someone's over here watching me, they can see that I actually turned about 15 degrees to go from this side of the room to this side.
Have you run around?
Oh, God. I'm too tight for time. I got a lot of stuff to cover. So anyway, the moon certainly does rotate. If you're watching from the sun, not ideal, but if you are, you will see the moon rotate. So another misconception is the dark side of the moon, which I think I even said. There is no dark side. That is a Pink Floyd album. There is a far side of the moon. The reason I bring this up is look how different the near side that we're used to seeing is so vastly different than this far side that we never see. This is due to a difference in the thickness of the lunar crust. And this is an open-ended question in science. We don't really know why the near side is thinner than the far side. There's a couple of different theories. One is that when the Earth and the Moon were forming, the the Earth was a molten ball and would have been so bright and actually radiating particles that it favored deposition of material on the far side. And this is because the moon, that rotation revolution called tidal locking, happened very early in the lunar history, so that this side of the moon has been facing the Earth essentially the entire life of the moon. Another theory is that the Earth has actually pulled the core of the moon closer to the Earth, making one side thinner and one side thicker. That's probably not true. That's not how tidal bulges work. We have two tides on the Earth. If you look at the oceans, it doesn't pull one ball of water towards the moon. It actually makes two orbs of water, one facing the moon and one not facing the moon. This is because gravity is more complicated than people want to admit to you. Now illusions. This is a very common held belief that the moon is larger on the horizon. It's not. It does definitely appear larger. And this was a debate in science for centuries whether this was a real phenomena caused by something geometric or if it's just in your head. The answer these days is it's in your head. So the first thing that most people think is atmospheric distortion. It's the atmosphere working like a lens magnifying the moon. A safe assumption, however incorrect. This is what atmospheric distortion looks like. It will preferentially work in one direction. So this is actually squatting the moon in the vertical. But it's not going to squat it also in the horizontal. And also you're really only getting the distortion right here. You can actually use optical techniques to figure out, whether this is this layer of air is a slightly different temperature and pressure causing this distortion. This color, by the way, is atmospheric. The light is the same color coming from the moon, but as it's going through all of that thick atmosphere, the blue light is scattering, causing the blue skies, and the only thing that makes it to your eye is the redder light. So the more atmosphere you look through, the redder things appear. This is why sunsets are red. This is why the moon on the horizon is red. And why if you see a red moon at 71 degrees, then it's time to work. So later theories were, I believe, called the apparent size theory, also called the flattened dome, that things on the horizon seem far away, things on the zenith seem close by, and this changes your brain's perception of apparent size. This is also thought not to be true anymore because it's explaining the cause with another cause. It's saying the moon looks larger because it looks farther, which you could then say it looks farther because it looks larger, and you haven't explained anything. This is called the Ponzo illusion. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It was an Italian psychologist. This is the illusion applied to the moon. Which one looks bigger? The one on top. So this is the idea that the background of an image infers the size of the object. This is also now thought not really to be what's going on, but I think it is a part of it. When the moon is low on the horizon, you have buildings and trees to compare its size to. When it's high in the sky, you don't. This is also closely related to this Ebbinghaus illusion. The size of objects are measured relative to other objects, which is pretty close to the Ponzo illusion. But when the moon's low on the horizon, you can compare it to local objects that are also small, so it appears larger in comparison. And then when it's high in the sky, it's surrounded by huge expanses of open space, which makes it look smaller by comparison. The simple fact is, get a cell phone now. When the moon looks really big, zoom your phone in, take a picture of it. It won't be great, it'll be okay. And then a few hours later, when it's high in the sky and it doesn't look big anymore, zoom your phone in to the same level, take another picture. Look at the two. You will not be able to see a difference. I've done this, and because of atmospheric things, it actually was larger at the zenith because of hazing. But here's a series of photos taken of the moon rising. No change in angular size.
if people want, I can post onto our Sunday Assembly webpage dimensions to cut a copper tube. I made a moon tube many years ago to show this to the kids. So if you calculate out so that the moon just barely fits in the end of the tube, you can put the tube right up to your eye, put the moon in it when it's at the horizon, and it just barely fits inside, and then you wait 6 hours and do it again, and people can't believe it.
Yeah, you can also use your pinky finger or your thumb to kind of compare, like, oh, the moon's about half the size of my thumb right now. Don't do it too much. I actually did a lunar observing program where I had to identify all of these individual mare or seas naked eye. So I stared at the moon for like an hour, and the moon just gets smaller and smaller and smaller in your field as you look at it longer and longer. They say if you do it long enough, it'll like completely, your brain will then flip a switch and say the moon is small. Because the moon really is small. It's only a half a degree in your angular field of vision. Another thing I've been told that you can do to prove that this is all an illusion is if the moon is over here, you actually look at it through your legs, upside down like this, and this is called the angle of regard theory, that the angle that your head is pointed changes the size of objects. This was completely blown. But the weird thing is when you do look upside down at the moon, it seems to get rid of this illusion. It also makes you look like a lunatic. So feel free to try to convince someone else to do that. That's always fun. So another illusion, you kind of have to be looking at the moon closely to even discover this illusion. This is known as the Terminator illusion. So this is that line between dark and shadow, and it's caused by the sun. So shouldn't it always point towards the sun? You say, yeah. But then you look at the moon one day, and you say, it doesn't seem to be pointing at the sun. You can look, these are panographic photos that I've taken. The moon, this moon is in this little box here, and the Terminator should be pointing right to the sun, but it's not. It's pointing up at like a 45-degree angle. So what's going on here? This is actually a geometric illusion caused by the sun being 400 times farther away than the moon. Now, in the sky, it doesn't look 400 times farther away. They both look like they're far away. And so your brain is not going to figure out this geometry. This is actually an artifact of how you take panorama images and how you kind of experience the world. So this is a pano taken with the horizon this way. If you take a panographic photo in the direction of the line between the moon and the sun, the illusion completely goes away. Here's the moon, the Terminator's pointing straight up, and the sun is straight up. Another way you can prove this to yourself, get a ball, hold it out at arm's length right in front of the moon, and you will see that they are in the same phase. So you can see here's the Terminator of the moon, and here's the Terminator of my smallest globe. It's about 3/4 of an inch. So this distortion, and you can make this distortion yourself. If you take this ball and then now you go some distance away from it, you can now see how this distortion is happening. So this is a cool little experiment you can do for yourself to prove, yes, that the geometry is working the way it should. This is just an illusion. The final illusion I'm going to talk about is this rotational. This is another thing. You really got to be looking at the moon to notice this. But the moon appears to rotate clockwise as it goes through the night sky. So it will rise in one orientation and it'll go like this across the sky. It's set upside down. The moon is not doing this. This is the rotation of the Earth. So if you think you're on the Earth, if you're on one side, you're actually standing on the Earth like this. So you're going to see the moon sideways, and then as you rotate around, now you're facing this way, and the moon's going to appear the other way around. So this is another thing. Get a phone out, take a couple pictures of the moon, and you will see this rotation. You can actually, I haven't done it, but I believe you can actually figure out your latitude on the Earth by how much it rotates, but I haven't done that yet. It's on my list. So that takes us through misconceptions, optical illusions, now things that are not motions of the moon, but not illusions. And these are called librations. This is subtle rockings back and forth of the moon. And they get rather complicated, so bear with me. So there's a couple of them: latitudinal, longitudinal, diurnal, and finally this position angle. And then we're going to put everything together. So the latitude is caused by this inclination. The moon is inclined, so if it's at the top of its orbit at a phase that you're looking at it, you can actually see up under the south pole of the moon a little bit. Then when it sinks down, you're looking up over the north pole a little bit, and you get that 5 degrees that the inclination is giving you. And so you can see in Tycho crater here, which is right down here on the moon, much closer to the bottom in this photo than it is in this. So here you're seeing more of the south pole of the moon. Longitude libration is a little bit harder to understand. Remember I told you that the rotation and the revolution speed of the moon are basically the same? That was a lot. They are. The problem is that eccentricity. The orbit is not perfectly round, and so sometimes it's closer to the Earth. In orbits, when you're closer, you go faster. Farther, you go slower. And so what happens is as the moon speeds up, as it gets closer to the Earth, it starts outpacing its rotation. Oops. And so what happens here is that if you have like a line pointing directly out of the moon to the Earth, that line doesn't always point directly at the Earth. It will point directly at perigee and directly at apogee, but it will lag behind and then catch back up in the other direction. And so what this produces is a longitude libration that makes the moon do this in its orbit. It does it about 8 degrees. So this allows you to see around the corner of the moon just a little bit. I actually have an animation of this that I've spent more hours than I'm supposed to. Maybe my first time I can show you guys that. But just looking at these photos here of this crisis mare, crazy. I'm not even gonna try. And then here, this Mare Humboldtarium, not even visible until it librates around. So there are people who image craters of the moon. They're waiting for the opportunity when the phasing and the libration all match up at the right time to actually see some of these craters. So some of these features you may only be able to see a few times out of the year, because one time the phasing will be wrong and it'll be dark. And then the next time it'll be cloudy. And then the next time the phasing's wrong again. And you go, oh my gosh, I'm never going to see this thing. Diurnal is the smallest of the librations. This is just caused by your location on the Earth. So at the beginning of the night at moonrise, you're over here. 12 hours later, you've moved 8,000 miles. And that is just enough to give you about 1 degree more of edge around the moon. So that 8-degree libration can bump up to 9, depending on the timing. If you're right at this position when the other libration is at its maximum, you can see all that. Position angle of the polar axis, I actually had to contact the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter team, the people that made the animation I'm going to show you, and said, explain this artifact of the animation, because I can't find it anywhere. Like, oh yeah, this is the technical name for it. And I go, it needs a better name. But this is because of your orientation to the orbit. So when the moon is off on your right and it's tilted away from you, you'll see that the polar axis appears to be pointing to the right. Then as it swings around to the center, it will line up, and then as it swings around to the other side, it will appear to go to the left. And I can try to demonstrate this just like a something straight. All right, let me use this. Or you know what, the straw. Perfect. So here's the moon. I'm going to incline it slightly more than normal. But which way is the straw pointing?
Straight up.
Straight up? Oh, well, you're at a bad angle. But towards your left a bit? Okay. So this is that same motion I made before. Now it's more vertical. And then if I come all the way over here, actually, now it's leaning the other way. So this is, it's not a motion, but it's not quite an illusion. It's just geometry and how perspective changes. And so this can actually make the moon appear to rotate about 25 degrees, which is basically the Earth's axis. So, putting all of this together, let's hope this link works. This is made by the LRO team at Johnson Space. This is an awesome animation. So this is putting together all of these different vibrations into one animation, except for the diurnal, the one caused by the Earth's motion. This perspective is if you're sitting at the center of the Earth and there's no motion of the Earth. You can see this rotation, this bulging, getting larger and smaller, obviously the phasing going across. So this is the Earth. You can see the shadow caused by the Earth itself. This is slowly going to migrate across. So right now we're basically in the winter of the northern hemisphere. You can see the moon. Right now it's at its close approach, so it's very large. As it swings out, it's getting farther away, getting smaller. Here's that polar angle. Very strange. And so this is something that, if you point this out, like 95% of people do not know anything about lunar vibrations. So they have no idea that the moon's motion is so intricate. They just think it's always the same, it's boring. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you actually look at this crater here, you can see there's times where you can see it, you can see it now, and then there's times where you can't. So watching kind of the South Pole, you can see things coming in and out of view. Watching the limb here, things coming in and out of view. So there's definitely, all of these vibrations put together mean that instead of seeing half of the moon's surface, we can see almost 60% of the moon's surface from the Earth. No space travel required, which is pretty neat.
So where exactly do you have to be to see the vast amounts of?
Anywhere on the Earth, you're good to go.
So you have to be in a specific
Nope.
location to actually.
The only place you don't really want to be is in the Arctic Circle, because there can be huge portions of time when the moon is below your vantage point. But Northern Lights up there, so there's always a reason to travel. Let's see if I can get back. All right, Anthony, help me. I'm gonna just pull the PowerPoint back up. Also, I always thought, I didn't know it was bad moon rising. I thought there's a bathroom on the right. Also, we heard blue moon. Who knows what blue moon is?
Beer.
There's actually 3 definitions of a blue moon. There's 13 full moons in a year. Normally there's 1 per month. If you get an extra one, that's a blue moon. 4 moons for full moons in a season can be called a blue moon, or just the normal definition is 2 full moons in 1 month is a blue moon, which doesn't actually happen. It's not as rare as people think it is, especially once in a blue moon. Turns out it's like once every year or 2. They happen more than elections, so. So, how am I doing on time? I'm at 2 seconds. I just started. Great. All right. So, precessions and perturbations. This is when things get really complicated. So, the orbit. Everyone is told that things in space are very precise and they keep going. And that's kind of a misconception. Everything in space is moving around and it's getting tugged and pulled by everything else. And so, we actually say that the Earth orbits the sun, and that we define this orbit, and here it is, and the Earth follows this track like it's a train. And it's really not true. The Earth is just floating around in space. It's sunk into a gravitational potential, and it just moves accordingly. But that potential changes, and so it's constantly moving around. So the moon being smaller, it shows these effects much more easily than the Earth does. So nodal precession, this is the inclination of the moon. It doesn't stay like this. It does this. So if I that's what the orbit of the moon is doing, and it's making one kind of oscillation every 18 and a half years. It's doing this and coming back to the same orientation. So this makes predicting eclipses a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
Apsidal precession is basically, we talked about the eccentricity, the lateness of the orbit. Well, this point at closest doesn't stay in the same place. It's doing this every 8.5 years, or 8.8 years. And then axial precession, most people know this for the Earth. The Earth is wobbling. The moon is also wobbling, but it's wobbling much faster. It's only tilted about 1.5 degrees, or 23.5. But every 18.6 years, the moon makes a full wobble, which takes the Earth about 25,000 years to do the same thing. You can see 18.5 years for those two precessions, which means they're most likely caused by the same thing. And most of the precessions and perturbations are caused by the sun. The rest are mostly Mars. I lost my clicker. All right, Lenny. I put it behind this one. Here we go. Most of the other ones are Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, because Jupiter's big and Mars and Venus are close, so they make the most effects. Perturbations are basically, they're not quite periodic, although some of them are. We're now into the thousands of defined perturbations of the moon. The Apollo astronauts left ranging mirrors that they bounce lasers off of, so that they can actually position the moon to millimeters. And so I've actually heard that if we're going to predict lunar motions any better, we have to account for the falling of the leaves in autumn, because there's an exchange of gravitational energy when the leaves fall on the Earth. So that's the level of precision we're talking about here. But in fact, the first perturbation that was ever discovered was discovered by the ancients, and it was the moon slowing down and speeding up. They thought it was a circular orbit, so it should always be going the same speed. But it's not, it's an ellipse, so it slows down and speeds up. So this is just Keplerian motion, but they called it a perturbation. Variation, Tycho Brahe discovered both of these. This is changing the speed of the moon during its orbit. Variation is caused by the sun. The annular equation is the angle. So just like the moon gets closer to the Earth and farther away, the Earth gets closer to the sun and farther away, not because of seasons, still not orbital period or anything. In fact, it's actually coldest when the Earth is closest to the sun. That's how little the effect of that motion
In the
is.
northern hemisphere.
What's that?
In the northern hemisphere.
In the northern hemisphere, yes. Yes.
So is the apsidal precession, so is the moon at its closest to the Earth once every 8.8
No,
years?
it's the position changes. So the moon will be closest to the Earth here, and then next year it'll be closest over here.
Oh, okay.
But you need a solar system reference frame, because if you're on the Earth's spinning so much faster that it's hard to notice this. But if you actually make detailed observations and say, oh, here's when the moon is the largest, and it was in Cancer. Well, next year when the moon is largest, it won't be in Cancer. it'll have slowly migrated over a constellation. And so the background stars give astronomers a nice reference system to measure things against. So if you say, when is the moon the largest, and you actually mark where it is in the sky at its largest, and do that. These are really difficult observations to make, by the way, especially from Michigan when it's so cloudy. But you will see that that position is slowly changing. On top of all the other things that are also changing, because it's going to be going up and down. And then this the angular equation is when the Earth gets closer to the sun, it speeds up. This actually expands the orbit of the moon slightly and slows it down. And then when it gets farther away, it collapses back down and speeds up. So there's a very shallow breath that the moon's orbit is pulsating every year, known as the angular equation. And then the parallactic inequality, it's over my head. And then this list just continues to get worse. I've actually heard, so the sun puts out a stream of particles known as the solar wind. It's extremely diffuse. It's the thickest solar wind is still more of a vacuum than the best vacuum we can produce in a laboratory. However, it's enough that we can actually measure it pushing on the moon, which is pretty impressive. So that is precessions. And finally, I just want to close on something more fun, eclipses and occultations. So in case, because I get these questions more often than I should, a lunar eclipse, this is when the moon passes into the shadow of the Earth. This happens much more frequently than solar eclipses, so they're easier to see. You don't need any special equipment, and this is kind of what you'll see, the moon passing into the shadow of the Earth. Now, a solar eclipse is when the moon passes in between the Earth and the Sun and projects its shadow onto the surface of the Earth. That inclination means that most of the time the moon goes above or below the direct line in between the Earth and the Sun. If the moon orbited perfectly in the ecliptic plane, we would get an eclipse every orbit.
I can tell from the coronal shape that that's from 2017. Did you
This
see
is-
that in 2017?
I did. I was out in Wyoming. This is another member of our astronomy club who actually took this series of photos.
Unbelievable.
Very good, yeah. And you can kind of know every eclipse has like a particular coronal signature. So, yeah, the corona here is the kind of upper atmosphere of the sun, and it's constantly changing depending on where it is in the solar cycle and a lot of other things. And so this is what's known as a total solar. But if this shadow, sometimes if the eclipse happens when the moon is farther away from the Earth, the shadow won't completely project onto the Earth, and you get what's known as an angular or annual eclipse, where you get just a ring of sun, and you don't get any totality, which are still neat to see, but they pale in comparison to a total solar eclipse. And then finally, much more frequent than eclipses are occultations. Planetaries are more rare, but they're a lot more fun. The moon can block any of the planets. So here's Venus, which is neat because you can see that Venus goes through phasing just like the moon does, although they won't be in the same phase. That's a third quarter Venus. Here's Mars, here's Saturn, here's Jupiter coming into an occultation, another great picture of Earth shine. You can see all the moons. So this would be an awesome one to watch because it would occultate all the moons and then Jupiter goes. And then this is actually a photo I took of the occultation of Aldebaran. So this little point of light here is Aldebaran. It's the brightest star in Taurus. This is actually the brightest star that the moon occultates. And the neat thing is you can see that the position that the star is relative to the moon changes based on your location on the Earth. And that also changes the timing of these occultations. So if you get a bunch of friends together all over the globe and you measure the timing and position of this occultation, you can actually start measuring. It's another way to confirm the size of the moon. And then there's a thing called grazing occultations where the object doesn't, it's the moon that's moving, but it's It's as if the object is going behind the moon. Sometimes it just grazes the surface. And these are wonderful for people studying lunar. It's not very useful anymore, but to ancient people, 1700s, 1800s. You could set up a group of people over a few football fields, carefully measure their positions. They're going to see a slightly different occultation. So someone in the front row might see a blink, blink, and then it's done. And then someone further down will see a different timing of that blink. And so you put all that information together and you can actually start getting a profile picture of the mountains on the moon. And this has actually been done, this was done to first determine that the moon had no atmosphere, because the star should fade and then come back if there was an atmosphere. So the moon not having an atmosphere was known by like the 1700s. And then you can actually start creating profiles of those craters that are right on the edge. So you can say, wow, these things are miles high. So that is all I have. Any questions you guys have? Yes.
You said the moon is about 2,000 miles around?
Yeah, about 2160.
That means about 2 trips to California.
So that's in diameter. Circumference, you're going to times that by pi. But yeah, it's much smaller than the Earth. They were worried about hitting it too hard, more than missiles.
Did they land on the side facing the Earth?
Yes.
Yeah, because you can't land on the Earth side because you wouldn't be able to communicate with it.
So that is something that's changing. We've now, so at the time of the lunar program, there was really nothing else floating around out there. But now there's a bunch of spacecraft around the moon that you could relay a signal off of. So if you wanted, recently, who done it? I believe it's the China. China is the first government to land a spacecraft on the far side. And they're communicating through a spacecraft.
Yeah, you just did it.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
If we go to here, there's these Lagrange points that, these are just kind of like balance spots of gravity. And so they didn't actually, I don't believe they parked it in lunar Lagrange, they're in Earth Lagrange, so they're like way out over here. But they basically parked the spacecraft over here and it relays the signal to Earth. And so there's going to be, when we go back to the moon, there's going to be no blackouts of communication. When the Apollo astronauts went around the moon, every time they went behind it, they were in radio blackout for like 45 minutes. And the astronauts actually said they really liked that because it was 45 minutes where they could just relax.
Yeah.
And no one's barking at them for those 45 minutes. It's not going to be like that the next time around. They're going to have constantly...
Constant barking?
Yes. And also, I have another talk about how we actually flew to the moon and all the orbital maneuvers you need to make. And most of them take place on the far side when you don't have communication.
They have one picture together, the astronaut on the moon.
Yes.
Now, everybody keeps holding, maybe it's the other one.
I did want to mention, in the
He's
other...
holding a movie camera.
Yeah, in the other, can we pull up the other presentation? Boy, Max are just, there's all the icons. You had a picture in the beginning of your slides of an astronaut, he's holding a ring. Yes, that one.
Oh, that one, there it is.
Oh, this is this. We'll get there eventually. You can close it on.
While we're waiting, any comments on Chandrayaan?
Not many. Is that the Jade Rabbit or the one that recently failed?
It just like 2 nights ago.
Yeah, landing on the moon is hard. And people are just rediscovering that because NASA did it 6 times and it started to look easy, and then now other people are trying. The other thing is, so NASA sent people, and people, especially very experienced test pilots, are pretty good at their job, whereas the Soviets relied mostly on robotics, and especially in the late 60s, robotics was really difficult. And even today, it's very difficult. I watched a little bit, and they said it lost what's known as attitude, the position of the spacecraft relative to whatever reference frame they're using. And so say this is your... Yeah, so say this is your spacecraft, and it's supposed to be landing like this. Well, it's got, like, radar pointed down, but if it starts to go like this, now the radar's pointed over here. And so I'm not 100% on this, but what someone had theorized is that it lost control because its motor wasn't not properly balanced. I mean, just things go wrong. It's really difficult. So once it lost attitude, it's now telling the computer you're higher over the moon than you think you are. And so it started to do all these wrong things. And, so this picture,
that's the Indian attempt to land on the moon just day before yesterday.
Yeah, so they got very close, they crashed, but they also have an orbiter where most of their instruments are in their orbiter, so they're still going to get a lot of stuff from their orbiter.
As far as the Indian Space Agency said that they believe they've located it. Trying to figure out if they can actually see from the orbiter.
Yeah.
They can see what state it's in.
Yeah, it's probably not good.
Kind of like a bug on a windshield.
Yeah. Well, they landed softer than the Israel team a few months ago. That one is like completely obliterated, but they believe there's a plate of tardigrades that may have survived. They're encased in the rest of it. So this picture, I saw this and I immediately wanted to know what could I glean from this picture, and a couple of things got pointed out to me. So he's got this movie camera, but on Apollo 11, only one astronaut had a camera. So who's taking this picture? So it's not Apollo 11. He's also got this rake, and so I immediately Googled lunar rake. Probably the most expensive rake you can imagine. This is so that they can scrape through this lunar regolith. You can see he's scraping a few times over here. And this will pick up pebbles and stones in this lunar dust. This was only used in Apollo 15 through 17, so this is one of the later missions. You can also see the mountains here is usually indicative of a later mission. So if I had to guess, I would say this is 15. I don't know for sure. But yeah, if you look at the Apollo 11 photographs, Neil Armstrong's wearing the camera, so all the pictures are of Buzz. Except for one, where he takes a picture of Buzz and you can see him in the reflection of the visor. But on later mission, and now also look at the geometry here. Try using a rake when you have a camera sticking out 14 inches in front of you. He's got a, not ideal, but there was a question all the way in the back earlier.
Yeah, does the moon affect like weather and such on Earth, or is it a combination of the sun, the moon, and the orbits?
Yeah, so
orbits like 18 years or 8 years. So does that affect how the weather and the tides?
I would say, so it definitely affects tides. So the tides are the most dramatic implication of there being a moon. It's also good for our stability. The tilt of the Earth would kind of go crazy over millions of years if we didn't have this moon. But weather, much more slight. It will have a measurable effect. But like if you've got a hurricane barreling down on you, you know, the moon can affect it, but it ain't gonna steer it, it ain't gonna stop it, it ain't gonna create it. All of that stuff is gonna be happening anyway. There is actually a guy who predicts earthquakes based on lunar position, and he's like the best in the biz because so we have tides where the water moves quite dramatically because of the moon. The continents also move because of the moon, but it's very slight. Like North America heaves like less than a millimeter as the moon moves over the top of it. But earthquakes are triggered by, like, you know, you've got these two plates and they're ready to go. And any small motion might slip these two plates. And so the, you know, straw that breaks the camel's back can be the moon moving in just the right way to let those plates slip. It's not foolproof, it's not a guarantee, but it's another possible artifact. I mean, the moon definitely does have an effect.
What kind of reverse effect would especially with the Earth being much bigger, have on the moon?
It does have an effect. It's not. So a better example of this would be like the moons of Jupiter. If you look at the moons of Jupiter, they're much closer. Jupiter's much larger, and you get these same tidal forces. So Io is the closest moon to Jupiter, and it actually gets squeezed and let go, and squeezed and let go every time it gets close and then far, and it's slight, but it's enough to actually keep Io molten. And so it's the most active world in our solar system. There are constantly volcanoes erupting on Io. If you make a map of Io, it's obsolete 1 year later because the volcanoes have spewed out so much material. So it's the most geologically active place, and it's actually because it's being squeezed by the gravity of Jupiter. So the same is happening to the moon on a much smaller scale. So it's certainly not keeping the moon geologically active. However, there are new studies that are showing that there may be off-gassing events that are still happening on the moon. The source I saw said that there is recent outgassing events, possibly as recent as 1 billion years ago. So we don't know the frequency of these events, but the same way that the moon can be causing earthquakes on the Earth, that tidal squeezing can be causing slight moonquakes on the moon. And we have seismometers that the Apollo astronauts left.
When they landed on the moon, one stayed in the spacecraft and left.
Yeah.
The guy was just interviewed.
Yeah, Michael Collins for the 11 mission. So the idea is you send 2 guys down and you leave one behind so that when you have to hook these 2 spacecraft back together, you've got a man in both of them. That's a lot safer than just having a computer run this spacecraft by itself and you try to get back into it.
Especially when you consider that the computer that they had was a poor laptop.
It was a really good hand-woven machine. I watched a documentary where one of the guys that worked on it you could tell he was irritated by the quote that like, oh, it's less than a cell phone. He's all like, it's better than your cell phone, I'll tell you that. That thing don't crash. And it
doesn't have any processing power.
it has very little capability, but it does exactly what it needs to do.
That was actually, being electronics, very aware that was the impetus for miniaturization of electronics.
Yeah.
See, that's made chips for a number of years, but nobody used them because they did it the way they always did it.
Yeah.
And then NASA said, well, this is the only way we're ever going to fit this.
Right, yeah. At the
so
time,
they pushed it forward.
Yeah, at the time, computers were the size of rooms. Wrap up. Okay, so the computers were rather large, and they wanted a computer on the spacecraft to back up on hand measurements that were made. They actually navigated to the moon the way sailors used to navigate on the Earth, but the computer and radar were nice backups to that system. But yeah, they wanted a computer that weighed like less than 8 pounds for this spacecraft. And,
you can see it. You can see it at the Smithsonian Air and Space.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The panel in front of one of the apps.
That's why I always argue. There's reasons to still fund space flight. It's
always has been.
Yeah.
Massive spin-offs.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna
Hey everyone, thank you for coming out again. It's not quite done, but I just wanted to say thank you. I know this is a great turnout. I think it's starting to get a little colder outside, so there's maybe less to do. But so I just wanted to talk a little bit about, unfortunately, some of the finances. I was been thinking recently, and then was reminded a little bit yesterday that I should probably tell everyone kind of the transparency between us. So it takes about $250 to run this place, 100 for the space, 100 for the band, and then like a little extra snacks and things like that, advertising and stuff. So just to be clear with you guys, that's about how much it costs. You guys have been super generous today though, so I don't really even have to say anything. You guys have put so much of electronic data in the bin, so I really thank you for that. But I just wanted to kind of let you know that that's pretty much the only thing that costs money. The rest of our events, which I can talk about, which is a great lead-in, these things are free. There's a lot of generosity from the members about hosting at their houses and things like that. We're looking to do partnerships with like public things, like we're going to do the next game night in the Auburn Hills Library, public library. So that should be a little different atmosphere, I think, than what most people are used to with the game nights. Sometimes it gets a little rowdy, but I think this will offer more of a family-friendly atmosphere. So something where we can bring the games. The Auburn Hills Public Library has just tons of games there, so you don't even have to bring a game. They got all sorts of fun things. But it's coming up this week. We got this Tuesday. If you're looking to get involved in Sunday Assembly and you want to help us with organizing different events, if there's things that you'd like to see done differently, done better, if there's events that you'd like to do, we're sorely lacking volunteering. So if you'd like to help us out with volunteering and organizing that, then go ahead and come back to this space, basically just downstairs, experimentation, a little bar downstairs. Just come down there. That'll be 7 p.m. this Tuesday. Wine with Ted, I think we've got a host now for this month for Wine with Ted. Jeff in the back is being...
It's kind of volunteering, kind of what are some of the things you're looking for a volunteer?
Well, we used to do the food bank, but I think it'd be cool to branch out a little bit. I mean, if someone wanted to reach out to the food bank and get us regularly scheduled, that'd be awesome. You know, let's do that too. But for example, last month we had Michigan Liberation in. So one thing I'm working on right now is trying to get, they've got a whole bunch of data to go in and they read, or they listen to court cases and things like that. They take information on demographics, you know, is it man, woman, is it, what's the race, what's the age, what's the offense, and things like that. So they've got this all in this big spreadsheet, and I know all you guys are nerds, and just like me. So what I was thinking is crowdsourcing that data and seeing if we can, as a group, kind of figure out some trends and things like that. I think that'd be kind of an interesting thing. So soon we're going to be putting that on Facebook, on the website, things like that for you guys to kind of dig into. There's one thing, not yet here, not this one, but working with the ACLU, they've got a smart justice campaign. So looking at like sentencing reform, trying to end like cash bail, things like that. So we should be working with them. We're going to try to work with the Birmingham Temple to get them in into a space where we can all listen to them and talk about what we can do to help out with the ACLU. So those are some kind of unique events. There's a thing being hosted by Michigan United, which is another organizing volunteering organization rather. So the Birmingham Temple is supporting them in a Detroit presidential forum. So there's a bunch of sheets of paper on where you signed in back there. If you'd like to grab one, you can take it home. So they've got coming up Sunday, October 20th is the presidential forum. But they're looking for volunteers beforehand too. So you can look at that in the back and come to me afterwards if you'd like. So those are some of the different kind of volunteering opportunities. We're looking to branch out. If you got other ideas, we're happy to hear them. So we can get people going in. Game night, like I said, is at the library. You can find it on Meetup online, all the information for that. And the next Cuisine and Conversation is happening in October, the first Saturday of the month, always, around 4 p.m. So we don't have the restaurant picked out quite yet, but I got some great recommendations from Lynn and George. Right here today, but they're always come to our stuff. So
Where's our wine tent?
it should be at Jefferson's, I believe. So
What city is it?
what's that?
What city?
What city? Where is it? Royal Oak, I guess.
Royal, yeah, right here, 13.
Royal Oak. It's like
The address on that.
it's pretty close to the yeah, so, but if you have other ideas, of course, share it with us. Of course, I talked about, there's a donation thing in the back too, but we have shirts, cool swag. If you guys want to go buy that online, we have that in there. You can do PayPal. I just set up a Facebook fundraiser for us too, but at any time you can donate to us on Facebook. I was just thinking about this, so lots of different ways. Amazon Smile is pretty cool. If you go to Amazon Smile, whenever you're buying something on Amazon, you can choose us as your donation of like fractions of a cent every time for every dollar come to us. But you know, enough people do it. It's a sizable donation. So, or directly through like PayPal or something like that, and donate it something. With that, I'll kick it back over and we'll have one last song.
this concludes the September edition of Sunday Assembly. Thank you very much, Emily, for your report statement. And I guess we should thank the crowd. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming. We will be having one session to film more. That's optional, but it'd be great if you can join us. Thank you.
Where again, Anthony?
Right below.